Have you ever felt that strange silence after love fades? That emptiness where laughter used to live? The quiet moments when you still think about him, wondering if he ever feels the same. You replay the good memories in your mind like an old movie, hoping somehow he might still be watching too. But lately it feels like he's gone for good. The calls stopped. The messages grew shorter. And you're left wondering, what changed? How did something that once felt so real suddenly disappear into distance? Yet here's a truth most people don't realize. Love doesn't just vanish. It shifts. It hides behind pride, behind fear, behind the walls people build when they don't know how to express what they truly feel. And sometimes the only way to make him see your worth again isn't through chasing or pleading. It's through quiet transformation. Psychology tells us that human attraction is deeply tied to emotional contrast. When something familiar suddenly feels different, the mind awakens curiosity and the heart begins to wonder again. When you start changing your energy, not for him, but for yourself, he feels it. It's not magic, it's psychology. Your absence creates space, your peace creates mystery, and your confidence creates desire. Men are wired to chase what feels valuable, and value is often rediscovered in silence. You don't need to convince him that he lost something special. Your growth, your glow, your emotional calm will do that for you. But this transformation isn't about manipulation or games. It's about reclaiming your power. The power you gave away when you tried too hard to be understood. Because when you finally stop chasing love and start embodying it, everything changes. You stop being the woman waiting to be chosen and become the woman he can't forget. The one whose memory lingers in his thoughts when he's alone. The one whose presence he begins to crave again. In this video, we'll explore 12 powerful psychological moves that subtly shift the dynamic between you and him. Moves that awaken his attraction, trigger his curiosity, and make him realize what he lost before it's too late. These are not tricks. They are reflections of emotional intelligence, confidence, and self-worth. The exact qualities that make love return naturally. So if you've ever loved deeply and lost quietly, if you've ever wondered whether he still thinks of you when the night gets quiet, stay with me, because sometimes love doesn't die. It simply waits for one person to rise strong enough to bring back the connection. And that person is you. This isn't about chasing him. It's about becoming magnetic again, through peace, power, and presence. Because when you master these 12 moves, you won't need to ask him to come back. He'll feel it. He'll remember the woman who once loved him with depth, and realize she's the one he should never have let go. He can't resist when you rebuild your confidence. When you rebuild your confidence after heartbreak, something powerful happens. You stop chasing validation and start radiating self-worth. A man can sense this shift instantly, even if you never say a word. Psychology calls it self-reinstatement, a process where you reclaim your identity, independence, and energy after emotional loss. It's magnetic, because nothing draws a man back more than seeing the woman he once knew transform into a version of herself he can no longer reach easily. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance or pretending you don't care. It's the calm certainty in how you carry yourself, the way you walk into a room without needing to prove your value. When you stop seeking his attention and start investing in yourself, your goals, your peace, your growth, he notices. Men are naturally drawn to women who have a strong sense of self, because confidence signals emotional stability and high value. You become the kind of woman who doesn't need him but chooses him if he's worthy. This psychological reversal triggers what experts call the re-attraction response. When you detach emotionally and focus on your self-improvement, his brain starts to reassess your worth. The same woman he took for granted suddenly feels distant, mysterious, and desirable again. Your silence becomes more powerful than any text you could send. Your new energy reminds him of what he's lost. Someone grounded, self-assured, and impossible to control. But rebuilding confidence isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about rediscovering yourself. Start small. Speak kindly to yourself. Dress in a way that makes you feel radiant. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, and pursue things that make you feel alive. Slowly, your inner light begins to shine again, and when it does, he'll feel it. Not just through your actions, but in your energy. When a woman rediscovers her confidence, she stops chasing and starts attracting. She no longer begs for love, she embodies it. And that's when he feels the pull stronger than ever. Because deep down, a man can't resist the woman who finally remembers her own power. The move that makes him regret losing you. The move that makes a man regret losing you isn't about trying to get his attention. It's about reclaiming your value and shifting the balance of emotional power. When you stop trying to prove your worth and begin living like someone who already knows it, something changes in the dynamic. Psychology calls this perceived value reversal. It's when the person who once walked away begins to realize they lost more than they understood at the time. At first, he might not notice. He'll assume you'll still be there, still waiting, still hoping. But when you quietly remove your energy, no arguments, no explanations, his subconscious begins to feel the absence. You no longer react to his messages. You're no longer available on demand. Instead, you redirect your focus to your own peace, your own goals, and your own happiness. That's when regret begins to set in. Not because you manipulated him, but because you've become a mirror of everything he once overlooked. Psychologists explain that regret in relationships often surfaces when loss meets growth. He sees you smiling again, glowing differently and carrying yourself with ease. You're not the same woman who cried over him. You're calmer, more centered, more radiant. This triggers a powerful emotional contrast. He remembers the comfort of your presence and realizes how rare it was. The human mind tends to overvalue what it can no longer have, especially when it sees that person thriving without it. You don't have to post quotes or make him jealous. The real move is subtle, emotional detachment. You stop chasing closure and start living in confidence. You become unpredictable, not because you're playing games, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself he once knew. Eventually, he'll think about what he lost. A woman who loved deeply, cared openly, and stood by him, and he'll wonder if he'll ever find that again. That moment of wondering is where regret is born. So don't seek to make him miss you. Focus on becoming so whole that losing you feels like his biggest mistake. That's the move that makes every man realize he didn't just lose someone. He lost the best version of love he ever had. The power of silence. Let him feel your absence. Silence is one of the most powerful moves you can make when you want someone to feel your absence. It's not about ignoring him out of anger. It's about creating space for reflection, awareness, and emotional contrast. Psychology refers to this as stimulus withdrawal. When you remove your presence or attention, the brain begins to crave the very thing it once took for granted. When you stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop chasing, you shift the emotional balance. Your energy no longer flows toward him. It flows back to you. At first, he might feel relief. He might think your silence means you've finally given up. But as days turn into weeks, something subtle begins to change. The messages that once came often are now quiet. The comfort of knowing you'd always reply disappears. And in that silence, he starts to feel the echo of what's missing. Your warmth, your laughter, your care. The human mind associates silence with uncertainty. When you're no longer available, he begins to wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, and more importantly, who has your attention now. This uncertainty triggers the curiosity loop, a psychological pattern where the lack of closure forces the brain to keep replaying unresolved emotions. In simple words, your silence keeps his mind busy, but silence only works when it comes from strength, not resentment. It's not punishment, it's peace. It's the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to prove their worth. When you stop explaining and start allowing your absence to speak, you reclaim your emotional power. You let him feel the void your presence once filled, and that void begins to teach him what words never could. Eventually, he'll realize that your silence isn't coldness, it's self-respect. It's the sound of boundaries, healing, and growth. And when he does, regret and longing often follow. Because nothing haunts the heart more than the quiet of a woman who used to care loudly, and now chooses peace instead. How soft distance triggers. His desire to return soft distance is a quiet yet powerful form of emotional communication. It's not about cutting him off or giving the cold shoulder. It's about stepping back just enough for him to notice the shift. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect, where something becomes more valuable the moment it's less available. When you create soft distance, you allow a man to experience what life feels like without your constant energy and attention, and that space naturally triggers his desire to return. At first, your absence might not register. He might even assume you're still emotionally there, still waiting, but soft distance isn't dramatic. It's graceful. You don't announce it. You simply redirect your focus, You stop initiating every conversation, you stop oversharing, and you stop trying to fill the silence. You become calm, self-contained, and subtly unavailable. That quiet change unsettles him in the most unexpected way. The male mind associates pursuit with value. When he feels your energy pulling back, not out of anger, but out of peace, it reawakens his instinct to chase. He begins to wonder what changed, what he missed, and whether he still holds your interest. This gentle uncertainty creates what psychology calls motivational tension, a powerful emotional force that drives him to seek reconnection. He starts replaying memories, overanalyzing your tone, and reaching out more, because deep down he senses something important slipping away. Soft distance also restores your emotional balance. You're no longer reacting, you're observing. You give him the gift of missing you without resentment clouding the air. It's the difference between slamming the door and quietly walking away. You leave a trace of warmth behind. And that warmth is what lingers in his mind long after you're gone. The truth is, men don't truly realize connection through words. They feel it through contrast. When the noise stops, the absence speaks. When your presence becomes rare, he remembers how it felt when it was constant. And in that quiet realization, desire awakens, not because you chased him, but because your soft distance reminded him of what he's losing. When you glow up emotionally, he notices when you glow up emotionally, the change isn't just visible, it's magnetic. A man may not always notice every detail about your appearance, but he will feel the shift in your energy when you begin healing and growing from within. This kind of glow-up doesn't come from makeup, revenge, or trying to impress him. It comes from peace. It's what psychologists describe as emotional differentiation, the ability to find joy, balance, and identity that exists independently of someone else's approval. When you start focusing on yourself, on your mental health, passions, and inner calm, your energy changes. You stop reacting out of fear or sadness and start responding with clarity and grace. You laugh more, stress less, and carry yourself with quiet confidence. That emotional maturity radiates through your eyes, your tone, your body language. And believe it or not, he feels it. Even if he doesn't fully understand why, something inside him becomes drawn to that light again. Men are highly responsive to emotional energy. When you're needy or anxious, it subconsciously pushes them away. But when you become self-assured, content, and emotionally balanced, you emit a frequency of stability and warmth. That's what pulls him back, not your words, not your effort, but your peace. It signals that you've become the kind of woman who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't settle for less than she deserves. Your emotional glow-up also awakens the contrast effect. He starts remembering how things used to feel when you were uncertain or sad, and now he sees someone radiant, grounded, and untouchable. That difference sparks admiration, curiosity, and sometimes regret. He might find himself wondering, what changed? Or why does she seem even more beautiful now? The truth is, your healing changed everything. So don't glow up to prove a point. Glow up because you finally learned how to choose yourself. That quiet strength, that unbothered energy, that sense of self-love, it's impossible to ignore. And when he sees it, he'll realize that what he lost wasn't just a woman, but the peace that came with being loved by her. Show growth, not grudges. It changes everything. Showing growth instead of holding grudges is one of the most transformative moves you can make after a relationship ends. It not only frees you emotionally, but it also shifts how he perceives you on a deep psychological level. When you choose evolution over resentment, you stop being the person trapped in the past and become the one who's moved beyond it. Psychologists call this process emotional transcendence, the act of rising above conflict and finding meaning rather than blame. When you grow, you no longer need to prove a point. You no longer replay the hurt or wish for him to feel your pain. Instead, you focus on healing, understanding your patterns, and becoming more self-aware. This kind of emotional maturity is rare and deeply magnetic. A man might forget the details of your arguments, but he will never forget the peace of a woman who forgives, heals, and moves forward with grace. Holding grudges, on the other hand, keeps emotional tension alive. It ties you to him through resentment, which still gives him power over your mood and thoughts. Growth severs that cord. When he sees that you're no longer bitter, that you can look back and wish him well, it confuses him in the best way possible. It breaks the pattern he expected. Instead of revenge or emotional chaos, he sees peace, and that peace stirs something within him, regret, respect, and a longing for your calm presence again. Psychologically, This is known as the contrast principle. People become drawn to those who respond differently than expected. While he might anticipate anger or emotional confrontation, your quiet growth becomes a mirror to his immaturity. It makes him reflect on his own behavior without you having to say a word. So when you show growth instead of grudges, you're not doing it to win him back. You're doing it to reclaim your peace. Yet ironically, that's exactly what makes him see you in a new light. Because nothing captivates a man more than realizing the woman he lost didn't crumble, she evolved. Subtle ways to reignite his curiosity about. You're igniting a man's curiosity about you isn't about playing games. It's about gently reminding him why he was drawn to you in the first place. Curiosity is one of the strongest emotional triggers in human psychology. When someone can't fully predict you, their mind stays engaged. Psychologists call this the uncertainty attraction effect. It's when a person's interest grows because they can't completely figure you out anymore. After a breakup or distance, he may think he already knows you, your reactions, your patterns, your energy. So when you subtly shift, it sparks new attention. You don't have to become someone else. You just need to show that you've evolved. Maybe you start posting about new hobbies, reading different books, or traveling to unexpected places. Maybe your tone becomes lighter, calmer, even mysterious. The goal isn't to flaunt change. It's to embody it naturally. Men are drawn to women who seem emotionally independent yet unpredictable in gentle ways. When he sees you smiling without explanation, glowing without validation, or doing something new without seeking his approval, his mind begins to wonder, what changed? Who is she becoming? That question is the key. It creates mental engagement, which quickly turns into emotional curiosity. Subtlety is everything here. Don't overshare your life on social media, or try to force reactions. Instead, let him discover small hints of your new world. The less he knows, the more his imagination fills the gaps. And imagination, fueled by emotion, is far more powerful than any message you could send. The essence of this move is graceful unpredictability. Be warm but not available on demand. Be kind but not overly familiar. Show him that your life has expanded beyond the relationship and that he's no longer the center of it. When a woman becomes both familiar and new, she awakens a man's curiosity on a soul-deep level. He starts missing not just who you were, but the version of you he can no longer fully access. And that quiet mystery pulls him closer than any words ever could. Why letting go makes him chase you again. Letting go feels counterintuitive when your heart still wants him. But in love, release is often the most magnetic force of all. When you stop holding on, emotionally, mentally, or energetically, you create a vacuum that naturally draws him back. Psychology calls this the reverse pursuit dynamic, where stepping away from attachment reawakens desire in the other person. When you're clinging, even subtly, he feels it. The energy of need or expectation makes him pull back because it removes his sense of freedom. But when you truly let go, when you stop checking your phone, stop wondering what he's doing, stop living your life around the hope of his return, you shift from attachment to power. You stop vibrating at the frequency of lack and start radiating self-trust. That emotional release changes everything. Men are instinctively drawn to independence. When he realizes you're not waiting anymore, something deep inside him stirs. Your energy no longer revolves around him. It expands outward and he can feel it. The woman who once needed him now stands on her own, glowing, peaceful, untethered. That contrast sparks a mix of curiosity and longing, because suddenly he's no longer in control of the connection. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop chasing. You let life unfold naturally. You redirect your focus toward joy, healing, and the people who make your world full. That emotional detachment tells him, without words, that you've outgrown the version of yourself that needed his validation. And paradoxically, that's the very moment he begins to crave your presence again. Psychologists explain that desire thrives in space, not closeness. When you're no longer emotionally available, he starts to wonder what you're thinking, who you've become, and whether he still has a place in your story. That quiet uncertainty reignites the chase, not because you played a game, but because you finally set yourself free. Letting go isn't giving up. It's trusting that what's meant for you will return in its truest form. And when he feels that calm, confident energy, he won't just miss you, he'll chase the peace he once only found in you. The move that makes him question his choices, the Move that makes him question his choices isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about transformation. When you quietly become the woman he no longer recognizes, his mind starts to replay everything he did to lose you. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the inner conflict that happens when someone realizes their actions don't align with their perception of themselves. For him, that means confronting the reality that he let go of someone truly rare. At first, he might convince himself he made the right decision. He might even act unaffected. But when he sees you evolving, happier, calmer, glowing in your own world, that certainty begins to crack. The woman he once assumed would always be there is now distant, centered, and unbothered. That emotional stability unsettles him because it forces him to see the difference between who you were when you loved him and who you've become without him. The key move here is self-reinvention. You don't announce your growth. You live it. You don't explain how you've changed. You let your peace, your confidence, and your actions speak. Maybe he sees you pursuing new goals, surrounding yourself with better energy, or simply radiating joy without his presence. That contrast between the past and present version of you becomes the mirror that reflects his mistakes. Psychologically, men begin to question their decisions when their ex no longer fits the image they stored in memory. He remembers the version of you who needed him. Now he sees a woman who's thriving without him. That difference triggers curiosity, admiration, and regret, all at once. He starts wondering, did I give up too soon? Did I underestimate her? The truth is, the move that makes him question his choices isn't loud, it's graceful. It's the quiet confidence of a woman who healed, grew, and stopped waiting for closure. You become living proof that losing you was his turning point, not yours. And as he watches your transformation, he doesn't just question his choices. He questions if he'll ever find that kind of energy again. 10. Emotional shifts that make you magnetic. Again, emotional. Shifts are the quiet transformations that make you magnetic again. Not because you've changed for him, but because you've changed for yourself. When your inner world begins to heal, it reflects outwardly in ways that no physical glow-up ever could. Psychologists refer to this as emotional recalibration, a process where your energy, boundaries, and emotional balance realign after heartbreak. And when that happens, people, especially him, start to feel the difference. The first shift is from need to neutrality. You stop needing validation or closure, and instead you find peace in the unknown. That emotional detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you powerful. It sends a clear signal. You're no longer tied to his decisions or approval. This shift alone changes how others perceive you, because emotional independence is deeply attractive. It communicates self-assurance, which draws people in effortlessly. The second shift is from reaction to reflection. You no longer respond to every trigger or memory with pain. Instead, you pause, breathe, and observe. This calm, grounded energy feels different. It's soothing, mature, and mysterious. Men notice when a woman stops being emotionally predictable. It challenges them, engages them, and makes them curious again. The third shift is from waiting to creating. You stop waiting for him to reach out, and instead you fill your life with purpose and joy. You start pursuing things that light you up, not things that remind you of what's gone. This shift turns your focus inward, and that self-directed energy becomes radiant. It's not that you're trying to get him back. It's that you've become someone too alive to stay stuck. These emotional shifts create a new frequency around you. You speak softer but carry stronger presence. You smile with peace, not pretense. You've stopped chasing love and started embodying it. That's the kind of transformation no one can ignore. So when he sees you again or even thinks of you, he'll feel something familiar yet new. The same heart but stronger, the same soul but freer. And in that quiet realization, he'll sense what psychology already knows. Nothing is more magnetic than a woman who's healed. Or how reclaiming your peace pulls him closer. Reclaiming your peace is one of the most powerful ways to shift the energy between you and a man. It doesn't mean ignoring him or pretending you don't care. It means choosing calm over chaos and clarity over confusion. Psychologists call this emotional regulation recovery, the stage where you regain control of your emotions after being emotionally entangled with someone else. When you reach that point, your peace becomes magnetic. At first, your decision to detach may seem like silence to him, but energetically, it speaks volumes. When you stop over-explaining, stop reacting, and stop waiting, you reclaim your emotional space. This change forces him to confront something he's never experienced before. the absence of your emotional availability. And that's when the pull begins. Men often feel most drawn to a woman when she becomes emotionally self-sufficient, because peace feels safe, rare, and grounding. There's something irresistibly attractive about a woman who carries serenity in her energy. You're no longer drained or desperate. You radiate a soft confidence that says, "I've made peace with what is." That energy doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't demand, it inspires. And when he feels it, it disarms his defenses. Suddenly, he's no longer trying to win arguments or prove points. He just wants to be near your calm. Psychologically, peace creates emotional contrast. If he's used to drama or tension, your quiet strength feels different, almost healing. He begins to crave it because it represents balance and comfort. This is how reclaiming your peace naturally pulls him closer without you saying a word. The real secret? Peace is power. It's the moment you stop needing anyone else to complete your emotional world. When you protect that peace fiercely and live in that energy fully, he feels it, not as distance but as gravity. Because a woman grounded in peace becomes a man's quiet obsession, the one who doesn't demand his presence, yet somehow makes him want to stay. Ooh. The final move that makes him want you back instantly. The final move that makes him want you back instantly isn't about what you say. It's about what you become. It's the quiet transformation that happens when you fully release the version of yourself that was waiting, worrying, or wishing, and step into the woman who no longer needs him to feel complete. Psychology calls this detachment-induced attraction. When you detach not from love but from fear, your energy changes. You stop reaching out, stop overthinking, stop trying to fix what's broken. Instead, you radiate peace, purpose, and self-assurance, and that shift is exactly what pulls him back. Men are deeply sensitive to emotional energy. When you were chasing, he felt control. But when you let go, he feels the loss of your presence. He may not understand it consciously, but subconsciously, your absence begins to echo in his world. He notices the silence where your warmth used to be, the calm where there was once constant connection. That emotional distance creates psychological scarcity, and scarcity breeds desire. The final move isn't to block him, ignore him, or play hard to get. It's to rise. When you redirect your energy toward yourself, your growth, your goals, your inner peace, you shift from trying to be chosen to realizing you are the chooser. You become magnetic because you no longer operate from lack. You've learned that love isn't about proving your worth. It's about aligning with it. And that's what stirs him the most. The same woman he once took for granted now feels unreachable. Not because you're distant, but because you've elevated. Your peace becomes mysterious, your silence becomes powerful, and your joy becomes irresistible. When you reach that state, he'll feel an unexplainable urge to come closer. Not just to you, but to the energy he once felt safe in. Because the truth is, the final move that makes him want you back isn't about getting him. It's about becoming you again. And when you do, the universe, and often he, can't help but come back to what's finally whole.